So we got very spirited this month and we decided we were going to do a little more research for our books, and we looked into the ghost lore of Harris County. So today we are actually at Hermann Park. We're right in front of the Miller Outdoor Theater, right at the roundabout. So this statue is actually supposed to symbolize the Civil War. This guy, it is said that he is protecting the Civil War cemetery and hospital that was actually on the same grounds as Hermann Park. So if you look that way, you can see that he's protecting the monument, but they say that this was a Civil War cemetery and a hospital. This park actually is one of the most pretty parks in Houston. Did you come here when you were younger too?
Oh yeah, isn't it also one of the most haunted parks in Houston?
Yes, we have the Houston Zoo and the Science Museum. There's the Miller Outdoor Theater, and then I mean all the trails of the park. And when you're here during the day, it seems so nice.
Yeah, friendly.
But Google and Houston lore told me otherwise. So the Houston Zoo, it came about in about the 1920s, and 2 decades later, we got one of our most well-known haunts. He seems to take care of the grounds at Hermann Park. They had a zookeeper named Hans Nagel, and he was very well known. He was like a media eye, and he actually came to the park one night and saw people that weren't supposed to be here and was watching them. Well, police officers got involved and he was actually shot and killed here. They say now if you come to Hermann Park after sundown, you can see him walking the trails and, you know, guarding the zoo. There's more that you could find as well. We did hear about at the Miller Outdoor Theater that there was an opera singer who also collapsed during a performance, and she supposedly haunts the theater now. But this all brought us into our October No Shelf Required. We have our books with us and we are ready to share with you 2 really great stories. Are you ready, Sarah?
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna let you go first. I've been talking.
Oh no. Okay, so this month I read The Haunting of Hill House. I'm sure you've heard of the Netflix series as well as some of the movies that have been based on it. To sum up my book really quickly, basically it's about this spooky old house and some people go to it. A doctor is doing psychic research, trying to figure out if having people with psychic abilities or who he thinks have psychic abilities, if them going...
That's key.
Disclaimer. So he's trying to see if he can stir up ghostly activity in this house that is thought to be haunted. Basically, ghostly activity does in fact happen. So it starts targeting our main character, Eleanor, and it's kind of a downward spiral as we see her start to kind of lose touch with reality. And it's part psychological thriller, and it is a spooky house.
I'm like, staying in there, you're gonna lose it a little bit. Come unhinged.
It's a part psychological thriller and part kind of just horror. So Eleanor seems fragile before she even comes to Hill House. Eleanor's mother passed away a couple of months before, but she seems a little, she's not necessarily warning her mother. She's more like, oh, my mother wouldn't let me do this. My mother would think this. And it seems kind of like she almost has sort of a dependent relationship with her mother, even though she's not currently with us. She just also seems kind of aimless since her mom died, because she was taking care of her before her death. And she came to Hill House basically because she had nowhere else to go. And she wasn't sure what she was doing with her life. So basically cracks start showing up as soon as we see her getting close to the other woman that lives in the house at the moment, Theodora. She starts kind of making up a backstory for herself, including like having a fake apartment, and she's taking little bits of, or she's imagining things that happen to other people, but she's saying they happen to her. So she kind of starts to become an unreliable narrator, which, didn't you also have an unreliable narrator?
I do totally have he was very unreliable, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in a little bit. She sort of seems, this is what I wrote in my notes, she seems to be a blank canvas who absorbs the energy of those around her. She's
that
basically...
was a deep thought.
Deep thoughts. That's what I went to.
Thought.
That English degree is just paying off right now. So she she basically is just fabricating reality. She also seems to have some social anxiety. Like, she doesn't know how to belong in her own skin almost. So this is kind of taking a different turn, but I saw the house as kind of like a character. It reminded me a lot of The Shining, because in The Shining, the house is also thought of as a character.
It's an entity, yeah.
Yeah, an entity. That's a good way to put it. So things start manifesting, like doors closing by themselves, cold spots. At one point, blood appears out of nowhere on a wall. And then to take another turn, there's a phrase repeated in this book. It says, "Journeys end in lovers meeting." So it kind of makes me think she's falling in love with this house, which by the time we get to the end, that is kind of what happens.
Like yearning to be there.
Yeah, she has like this deep yearning to be in the house. So the characters start turning against each other as these ghostly happenings start. I
Makes
kind
me
of
think
thought,
of Clue.
I still haven't seen that, and I love Tim Curry.
It does. It makes me think of Clue, because the longer then the house is empty in that
Oh, they
one.
start turning on each
They
other?
start turning on each other, and by the end of it, everybody's against each other. Like, there is no peace.
So I thought, basically, to sum it all up, there was kind of a theme of mothers. We have our character Luke, and he says, "I don't have a mother." He's kind of trying, it seems like, to hit on Eleanor by saying that. Like, he's
like,
looking
we-
for a
we
mother.
relate.
We relate. But she's definitely looking for a mother figure. He's looking for a mother figure to give her a sense of purpose. And it seems like she's either falling in love with the house or looking at the house as a mother figure. I did watch The Haunting movie from 1999 just to kind of see how it compared to this.
Did you watch it after you read it?
Yeah, I watched it
Because
after
I haven't watched
read
it recently, but that was one of the first scary movies I do like remember sitting down
Yeah.
to watch with my mom. And I just remember how scary, that scene was where they have that thing fall from
Yeah,
the
that's what
ceiling.
I was talking about to Lee.
Yeah. So how similar was that one to the book?
So the theme is definitely the same. So Nell being in search of a home, not belonging anywhere. Actually, one good thing I thought was in the movie that wasn't in the book is above her mother's bed before she leaves her mother's apartment, there's a cross-stitching that says everything in its place and a place for everything. And I thought that was fitting because Nell is trying to find a place for herself. So the last thing I'm gonna say is that there was kind of some homoerotic undertones, and I was actually talking to Taylor and Lisa a little bit about this. But it kind of plays into, because Eleanor kind of latches on to Theodora, and she even wants to move in with her by the end of the book. And it's kind of hinted at that Theodora is living with a woman, which wasn't commonplace at the time in the 50s when this was written. But to me, it kind of read like Eleanor was just searching for anything and anybody to attach herself to now that she's lost her mother. So there's a lot,
big dependency.
but just being very dependent. So there was a lot to unpack in this book. It's definitely literary fiction, if that's what you're into. There's probably even more themes going on in here that I didn't notice. But
That's every book,
back
right?
to I know. So back to the topic of unreliable narrators. Taylor, do you want to talk about your book?
Yes. So I read The Changeling by Victor Lavelle. Lavelle, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Victor. This was a great book. I deeply enjoyed it. So I actually found this book because you had picked yours, and I went on Goodreads, and I do this, I don't know if you've done it yet, but anytime you've picked a book first, I'll go and like try to find something that's similar to yours.
Oh, okay.
After reading it, it is nothing like your book in the sense of atmospherical, spooky story. But
Yeah, you have
on the opposite end, there's that like toxic parent.
Relationship?
Yeah, that toxic parent relationship, because the character in this book has a really weird relationship with his mom. He doesn't really know his dad. And I think that's what kind of leads him to be an unreliable narrator. We have our main character, Apollo. You get to see him as a young boy. His dad leaves. And you learn a little bit about his wife too. Her name is Emma. They both are, it's a bookstore keeper and a librarian. And they both like to travel and stuff at the beginning. They're in New York, and this is actually based in 2015. I think that's important because it definitely gets really weird, and I forgot what year it was toward the end. Brian, Apollo's father, leaves. It kind of goes back into his adulthood where Emma is pregnant and they are getting ready to welcome a baby boy. It gets kind of crazy at this point because they're coming home or trying to come home from somewhere, and they're on the subway in New York City, and she goes into labor. And he has to, yeah. I was like reading this, and the whole time I'm like, the subway's so dirty. There's a new baby in there, like this is insane. But the baby's born, they get to the hospital, everything's okay. They're in the news because, you know, the subway, and babies aren't born every day in the subway, so that's kind of cool. And life goes back to normal. They're new parents. Every new parent deals with all these crazy issues. But again, they named the baby Brian after Apollo's dad. So Brian's here, he's growing, they're new parents, and Apollo starts having the dreams that he had when he was younger, the night terrors he had when he was younger, and all of them are about a baby being taken away. A baby just stolen in the middle of the night, which relates back to the Maurice Sendak book. It was like Labyrinth because the story, the picture book that he got when he was little, is about these little goblins. The parents are gone, the sister's watching her little brother, and little goblins sneak in the middle of the night and trade the baby for an ice baby.
That is very much like Labyrinth.
Very much like Labyrinth. So the whole time I was getting that feel for this. So baby Brian is born, Apollo and Emma have the baby on the subway, and everything is okay. New parents, they're tired, kind of same old song and dance. Well, then weird stuff kind of starts to happen. Emma starts talking about getting these pictures of baby Brian sent to her phone, but when she goes to show Apollo, they're not there. They're not on her phone at all. She can't find them. She's like, okay, I swear I'm not crazy. These were pictures here. So he actually, and this was something that I really liked about this book, and I liked isn't the right word, but it really highlighted postpartum depression well, even though that's not the central theme of the book, because Apollo starts telling Emma, like, you need to get some help, you need to get on medication, like this is just the baby blues, like you need to get better. And clearly something else is wrong. At about 6 months old, they get into a really big argument, and she's telling him about, you know, I don't feel right, people are sending me pictures of the baby, nothing about our parenting seems okay, and he's still having his night terrors. Then the incident happens. So I don't want to say what this incident is, I don't want to spoil anything for you guys, but this incident, I thought this was the turning point of the story, this was the halfway point. And before this, it was very slow. It felt like I was gonna put the book down. And then the incident happened, and I couldn't put this book down. From there, they introduced so much. Like, I would love to know what's going on in Victor's mind, because he made Apollo such an unreliable narrator this entire time that once this thing happens, he is really all over the place. You think he has completely lost it. I guess I kind of have to say it. I'm like, I didn't want to.
Just give as few details as possible.
So Emma does something to the baby, and the baby does not survive. Emma then goes missing, and Apollo, like any father would, loses his mind. She works in a library, so he goes and he takes 3 librarians hostage to get information about where Emma is, because he's like, my kiddo's gone, my wife's gone, what am I doing? It ends up going to jail for a time. He ends up getting out, I think it's like 3 months later. They do deem it a psychological break, and he's really just losing it. He goes home, and his mom's there, and his mom's like, let me help you, let me help you. And at the beginning of the book, we got a little bit of information about his mom and his dad, but it was very, again, you could tell that he didn't know the whole truth. There was no whole truth yet. So he meets with his mom, and his mom's like, let me help you, you know, we'll run you a bath, we'll clean, we'll do the things. And she tells him the story about how when he was little, she would leave him alone. He was 4 years old, she would leave him alone. And she left him alone every weekend, every Saturday, next Saturday, next Saturday. Well, every time she came home and he was fine. He would have eaten his little snacks and drinking his bottle. Well, she came home a 5th time and his real dad, Brian, who he left when he was little, or he thought he left when he was little, was there. And from what he remembers is his dad telling him, you're coming with me. Which is something that was also said by Apollo during the incident. So there was just so many connections. From there is witches and trolls, and there's a magical forest in New York City. It gets really, really fantasy. Whereas I picked this book for horror or spooky.
And you got fantasy.
And I got definitely fantasy. But I mean, what was I thinking when the name is the Changeling? Like, what do we all think about the Changeling? It's a fairy baby, right? But they definitely twisted that a little bit. But I won't go into any more detail because if I do, you won't read this book. But I promise I couldn't put it down. It was a great read. I definitely will be picking up more of Victor LaValle's books too, like for sure.
So what were some of the themes of your book?
So definitely toxic parent relationship. His mom wanted to help him, so she kept a lot of freaking secrets, like a lot of secrets. Like he thought his dad left his whole life, and then he finds out that she kicked him out, like she made him leave. They also have some really short, like, chapters in there, but they all relate back to like children's stories or fairy tales. So there was that theme of like, I don't want to call it a fractured fairy tale, but like there was a fairy tale with no moral. It was an old fairy tale, like a Grimm's Brothers theme throughout.
So fantasy was kind of woven in from the start.
Yeah, but it was still very spooky, very ominous. I mean, especially when, as a parent reading this book, I was losing it a little bit, especially when there's baby missing and another baby's passed away. Like, it got really weird. But I'm glad I kept reading. I will say I'm glad I kept reading, because if I hadn't kept reading and put it down, I wouldn't have got to experience such a wild journey. It was wild. It definitely was not like Haunting a Hill House. Other than the like unreliable narrator and the toxic parent relationship, and maybe that dependency too. But there was no spooky house. There were spooky woods. I'll give you that.
There was some spooky
woods. It definitely got a little weird.
So, how'd y'all like your books overall?
It was good.
Oh, we should rate them.
Oh,
We haven't rated them in the past. Let's do like 5 stars for the best.
I'll give mine a 4 out of 5.
I will give mine a, can I do like 3.82?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like a 3.82, almost 4 stars, just because there was a lot of stuff going on in my book. But yeah, almost 4 stars. So if you guys like horror, thrillers, what else? What other, spooky? Both of these books are definitely right up your alley. And remember,
no shelf
required.